Hey, welcome everyone to our diaphragm breathing for lymph flow session. I'd like to welcome our guest, Lisa Bergman Sylvestri, who's a CLT, and she's also LANA certified. She also has an MS in PT and hails to us from San Ramon, California. She's also the founder and owner of oasisptwellness. I first met Lisa on Instagram. We became fast friends, and she joined the Lymphie Strong Challenge series and became an active member of our Facebook group and also an active member of our challenges. And she especially became active during our yoga session. So I thought she was absolutely perfect to lead our diaphragmatic breathing session to serve as a refresher for all. We go to decongestive therapy, complete decongestive therapy, and we learn to breathe and clear our thoracic duct. But sometimes it's been a while. Like I haven't been to CDT since 2018, and not everyone goes on an annual basis or even a regular basis. So it's always good to have a great refresher with someone. And like I said, I thought Lisa would be perfect. So without further ado, Lisa, feel free to take over.
All right. Good morning, everyone from the West Coast. I'm still getting the caffeine into me. So let's plan just a very casual, this can be as interactive as you would like it to be talk. My goal for today, after talking with Veronica, was really just to give a little more of a background on the diaphragm as a muscle, as something that is really important for us to utilize as patients as well as therapists in order to maximize lymph flow. So I'm trying to figure out the share screen. I only have a few slides. Like I said, I want this to be really casual, but it always helps to have a little content and visual for everybody to see. So I'm going to try this again. I'm going to do that. Now, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful. So just a quick reminder that this is an educational presentation only. It is not to be used as a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. These are my personal and professional views, but it's always, always, always very important for you to work with your own medical team in order to determine the best care for you. And there are no disclosures for me to report with Veronica or with the Lymphie Strong community. I'm just happy to be a part of it and happy to be here. So I am going to just show you this before I start talking as a reminder of what our diaphragm muscle is. It is a muscle that is concave in nature that really kind of divides our lungs or thoracic cavity from our abdominal cavity below. As a muscle, we realize that all muscles have contractile properties. And this muscle has a central tendon down the back of it, but it has connections, as you can see here, along the bottom of our breastbone or sternum, along the ribs, and all the way around the back towards our spine. So I'm going to try and come back here for a moment. And okay, am I back?
Yes, you're back.
Okay, great. So, this muscle sort of sits as a dome on top of our abdominal cavity. Now, the next figure I will show you gets a little bit more in depth about why it's really important to have good diaphragm control and understand what our diaphragm is doing as far as our breathing, as far as our lymph flow, and as far as activity. Whether you're
Sorry.
Okay, sorry. So whether your activity is running, excuse me, or yoga, or walking, or simply just basic stretches, whatever your activity is, we all have probably learned at some point that our muscles act as pumps to help propel the fluid in our body, blood and lymph, to keep it from getting stagnant, right? So when we have a muscle, and our diaphragm muscle is the chief muscle that we use for breathing, specifically for breathing in. Breathing out is more a natural just response. There's less muscle activity in breathing out. So as we breathe in, it's really our diaphragm that's doing the work, but the air does go into our lungs, so we can feel the movement in both areas of our chest wall and our chest cavity. So I'm going to quickly show you now the next slide, which is, this is just a quick picture on the back of our diaphragm. So why I like this picture is because there are a few areas in the diaphragm where vessels perforate or go through the muscle. So what you can see here is our abdominal aorta perforating the diaphragm muscle, but that little green vessel next to it is the cisterna chyli and then the thoracic duct. So for those of you who don't remember, the thoracic duct is the main lymphatic vessel in our body, where all of the lymph vessels from our lower extremity come together in our abdomen at the cisterna chyli and then go up the thoracic duct, where it will eventually rejoin our venous system as well as the lymph of both of our upper extremities. So I'm going to leave this picture on just for one more moment so you can really understand this diaphragm muscle is completely surrounding our blood vessels as well as our main lymph vessel in our body. So
wow, that makes a lot of sense now.
it really helps to see that picture, I feel, to understand why it's so important to breathe and to breathe properly. So when we are breathing, and we're going to go through a demo in just a minute, but just to show you, when we breathe and our diaphragm expands and contracts, it actually looks somewhat like a balloon, right? It expands, the outside coat, the outer rim of the muscle comes up while the main internal portion of the diaphragm goes down, allowing for expansion of our lungs. And then as we exhale, it comes back up. So breathing in and out, in and out, in and out. So you can understand why the muscle pump activity of the diaphragm is really helping. Number one, it's causing a negative pressure in our abdominal cavity, which causes almost like a suction effect of the fluid in our thoracic duct, as well as just the slight pumping motion of the diaphragm can help propel lymph fluid throughout our body. So it's really a small visual, but it's really kind of important for us to understand that even though there's a lot of study literature on diaphragm motion for blood vessel and blood movement, there's very little research looking specifically at the thoracic duct and at the lymph fluid itself. So sometimes you'll hear people say, let me see the research. And I mean, I tried to find a study, I found a little bit of literature that actually says this changing in pressure with the breathing can cause improvements in lymph flow, but there's very, very few clinical studies that actually help show this. But when we learn the anatomy, when we understand the anatomy, when we understand how the muscle pumps are working, we can understand how the diaphragm really is helping us move fluid. So it's really important to remember that the diaphragm is a muscle. Just like you're doing your exercise, you're walking, you're running, your yoga, you're swimming. I know you guys just had a water challenge. The diaphragm muscle is going to be really important in training and keeping it strong for maximal, or optimal, I should say, lymph flow. So just like any other muscle, it can be hurt, it can be damaged because of all the connections in the ribs, in the back of the breastbone, and especially in the spine. There are going to be times when you may have neck pain, and you know, here's excellent posture. You get neck pain, you start doing this, that affects your low back, that can affect your diaphragm. You hurt your shoulder following a surgery, your posture changes that can affect, I know you can't see my rib cage here, that can affect our diaphragm. So posture and breathing goes along with everything else. It's not isolated. And as a physical therapist or occupational therapist that you might work with, you might realize that why is it so difficult to achieve great diaphragm breathing? There may be other things going on. So make sure that if you have trouble doing this, you're speaking with your therapist. If you have that opportunity, you're utilizing these Facebook groups and social media groups where people are really willing to say, this is what's going on. You know, there's so many things for us to just understand, again, as patients and clients to and therapists, to make sure the whole system is working together. So
all kinds of bells and whistles and light bulbs are going off for me. I have never had this explained to me this way. I mean, the first image in my mind, because, you know, I have lower extremity lymphedema, so I'm always concentrating on trying to make my calf pump, because I want my calf to pump, because I've always been told if your calves are pumping, then your saphenous vein is circulating, and, you know, you can move lymph from the bottom, you know, to the top. I never thought of the diaphragm actually, you know, hitting the cisterna chyli, and that makes absolute perfect sense. So, I mean, that picture is very powerful. I think every patient should see that picture.
Well, I hope they will. And, you know, I think it's important to understand that muscle pump activity in the form of, you know, ankle pumps, or in the form of just walking. When you walk, you're using all the muscles in your lower extremity. At the end of the day, especially, you know, as summer's ending and those 100-degree temps, elevation is still important, no matter what stage of lymphedema you're in. You know, I know that the books say, and it's still something we really believe, is that if you're later stage lymphedema and have a lot of fibrotic changes, elevation isn't going to be as beneficial, which is true, but still getting the gravity to help move fluid along with the muscle pumps, along with the breathing, along every stage of the lymphatic system, it's going to be important. So without further ado, I want to teach you all how I teach diaphragm breathing. So I'm going to try and back up so you can see a little more of me. Well, I guess I'm going to stand up. Okay, so I prefer to teach diaphragm breathing with you either in a relaxed seated position or even lying down, because the first thing to remember is that breathing exchanges oxygen, right? So when we do diaphragm breathing, and it's not something we've done before, we're taking in oxygen a little bit differently than with just normal, relaxed, non-diaphragmatic breathing, which is a little bit of a false statement because we know our diaphragm is being utilized the entire time we breathe. But because we're taking oxygen in a little differently, there is a chance that you might feel a little lightheaded or dizzy as you begin this training. Again, this is an exercise, and it's really important for you to be aware that this can happen and stop immediately if you start to feel lightheaded or dizzy in the slightest. Okay, so what I want you all to do is put one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly. Excuse me. Just take a few regular breaths. In and out, nice and slow. What you're probably going to feel is a little bit of movement maybe in your belly, but you feel more the rise and fall of your chest. And that is your lungs expanding as the oxygen goes in, and the lungs resting as the oxygen comes out back into blood flow, right? So when we perform diaphragm breathing, we're just trying to focus more on utilizing the diaphragm throughout its full range of motion and its full potential. So as you inhale, I want you to visualize that diaphragm really expanding, and when this comes out, your abdomen, your tummy is going to expand, filling with air. So breathe in and fill your abdomen with air. Nice and slow, and then exhale, empty the abdomen of all the air. So if I do this sideways, breathe in and fill the belly with air. Exhale, empty the belly of air. I'm using my lips for no other purpose than dramatic sound. It doesn't really matter if you breathe in through your nose or through your lips. It's what's going to be easier for you. Sometimes people prefer to breathe in through the nose and out through the lips. However you do it is fine. Now, what I want to know is, I know there's only a few of you on the video, but if any of you are feeling a difference in lightheadedness or whatnot, again, stop. But think, maybe you haven't been training this muscle properly. Maybe you haven't been utilizing your diaphragm as effectively as you can. The more you do this, the easier it will get and the better you will feel. So just like any other exercise, it may take time. I'm going to show you on the next slide. It's the handout I utilize to give patients to teach diaphragm breathing. I've purposely left the reps and sets blank because you may only be able to start with 2 or 3. And that's fabulous. If you can do 2 or 3 and feel good and feel your abdominal muscles working, then, your diaphragm working within your abdomen, great. Some of you who have been doing yoga for years may be able to do 10, 15, 20 easily. The point is to train your muscle to get better and better and stronger over time. So whatever it is for you is going to be appropriate. Usually when I teach a patient this and I realize, okay, this person can only do 2 or 3, some people can't get it at all on the first visit. And just learning how to use our muscle properly, takes a lot of training and effort. So for what you see, if you want this, I'm happy to send it to you. Just send me an email, but it's really going to change the way that you think about breathing. Now, I just fell victim to saying our abdomen, our tummy. When I teach people how to do diaphragm breathing, I often say fill the belly or fill the tummy with air because you feel the belly moving. I just realized how unattractive that is on video, but oh well. You see and you feel the belly move in and out. It is not the belly muscles that are performing this movement. It is the diaphragm underneath. It's certainly going to affect some of our abdominal muscles, but it is the diaphragm that is performing this. So sometimes people will say belly breathing. The official terminology is diaphragmatic or diaphragm breathing. But understand when people say belly breathing, it's because we see the movement of the belly. It's really the same thing depending on how we say it. So I'm just going to show that last slide, if I can bring it up easily. Here it is. So sit or lie in a relaxed position. Place your hands on your abdomen. Again, I prefer one hand on the chest, one hand on the abdomen, so you can compare what's moving more. Breathe in slowly but deeply through your nose, keeping your shoulders relaxed. So that's another thing. If you feel yourself tighten up,
the photo is not, the photo's not showing.
Oh, it's not showing?
No.
Oh, no. Okay, hold on. Is it showing
there
now? Okay.
Let's
okay,
see.
so
we see screen broadcast. Oh, there we go. There we go.
Okay, got it. Okay, so relaxed position, one hand on the belly, one hand on the chest, keeping your shoulders relaxed and your upper chest quiet. So if you feel a lot of that movement in your chest, it means obviously you're still using your diaphragm to breathe, but there's a lot more room for diaphragmatic expansion. And like I said earlier, if there are other problems or issues or surgeries or back pain or a million other things going on, it might be something that we have to work on more before we can achieve or feel improved diaphragm breathing, but you should feel the abdomen rise and fall. So this says breathe out through your mouth. Like I said, it's not an absolute. So if it's more comfortable for you, nose versus mouth, that is fine. And the last thing is as you're exhaling slowly, you will feel the abdominal muscles. So when I say tighten abdominal muscles and press with your hands, it's to get that feeling of fully emptying the abdomen and the diaphragm muscle getting full contraction as much as you can to really maximize the amount of air movement. Once you're utilizing diaphragm breathing as you're going throughout your day or performing your exercise, that becomes more natural. You don't need to add that external pressure. This is really for training purposes. So again, repeat 3 times a day if that's all you can do. If you're a yogi and have been doing it for years and years, you might be able to do 10, 15 throughout the day. But again, remember to stop immediately if you feel faint or lightheaded. Before I will come back on the screen, I just want to show you my email address in case any of you want that. You can email me and I'm happy to send it back to you. I'm going to give you one more moment to screenshot this or write it down. But I'm going to come back on. Can you all see me again?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So tell me if you guys have any other specific questions, if there's anything else you're wondering. Like I said, this is more of a real casual conversation, a little bit of education. I know there's going to be a more formal presentation on the diaphragm and diaphragmatic breathing, I believe next week. Is that correct, Veronica?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And at this point, I'm going to pause and I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.
Gotcha.
To allow the members that we have online here some confidentiality. So in order to close this segment, I want to thank you so much for agreeing to be part of our community and for this wonderful presentation. Like I said, so many bells and whistles are going off and I have so many questions, but I'm going to stop recording for the sake of those here. And thank you so much.